Jonathan Blake there. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has appealed for calm after the country's presidential elections were postponed. The decision to delay the vote for a week was announced just a few hours before polling stations were due to open across the country. Electoral officials say the delay was down to the transportation of electoral material and was not a result of external pressure. Well, a short time ago, the chairman of the Electoral Commission addressed the media. And the BBC's Mayeni Jones has more from Yola in the northeast of the country.
Waking up to disappointment. Voters across Nigeria aren't happy. Many people had to travel long distances to cast their vote. In President Muhammadu Buhari's hometown, there was surprise.
I was not expecting the election is going to be postponed because we have seen the president is in the town. When we have seen many people are coming from far places to come to their hometown and cast their vote, so we are not expecting it.
I couldn't believe it until I come out. I now discovered that people are just standing.
Others have vowed to show up again next week.
What make me to do the vote? Because if you not do the vote, we will not know as things have going on. But if we do the vote, we will see changing of the things.
A few polling stations we visited here in Yola in the northeast of the country are completely empty. No ballot papers and no people. And life seems to be carrying on as normal. Nigerians are used to delayed elections. The last two polls in 2011 and 2015 were also postponed.
The announcement of the delay came in the early hours of Saturday, when most people were in bed.
Following a careful review of the implementation of its logistics and operational plan and the determination to conduct free, fair and credible elections, the Commission came to the conclusion that proceeding with the election as scheduled is no longer feasible.
Some offices of the Electoral Commission have been burnt over the past 2 weeks, and voting materials, including ballot papers, hadn't made it to the polling stations late on Friday night. Turnout on election day is usually low in Nigeria, and there are concerns many of these voters now won't bother showing up next week. Mayeni Jones, BBC News, Yola.
It's just approaching 4:15, time for the headlines here on BBC News. And the Justice Secretary has said the government's main priority has to be the safety of the public when considering the case of Shamima Begum. A 27-year-old man has appeared in court charged with the murders of 3 elderly men in Exeter. Thousands of criminals in England and Wales will be tagged with GPS trackers to allow authorities to monitor them 24 hours a day.
And in sport, in the FA Cup, Brighton are through to the quarter-finals after a 2-1 win over Derby. A goal from Anthony Knockaert and a second from Jurgen Locadia are enough for Brighton to reach the last 8. Paul Farbrace will stand down as England's assistant coach at the end of their Caribbean tour. He is joining Warwickshire as their new sporting director. And the Ethiopian teenager Samuel Tefera has broken the world indoor record for 1,500 metres at the Birmingham Grand Prix. The previous world best mark was set in 1997. I'll be back with those stories and a lot more for you at around 5:30.
Now, thousands of criminals in England and Wales will be tagged with GPS trackers to allow authorities to constantly monitor their whereabouts. The current tags, which are worn by around 60,000 offenders, are linked to a fixed address, such as an offender's home, with alerts generated if they're not there at certain hours. Our Home Affairs correspondent, Danny Shaw, reports.
We have GPS technology in our cars and on our smartphones.
After 100 yards.
Now it's being used to track the movements of offenders and suspects on bail. This is a demonstration of how the satellite tags are fitted, using an expert who's helped set up the scheme. The ankle tag sends an alert if someone goes to an area they're banned from or isn't attending a rehabilitation course when they should be.
It gives us very detailed information as to where that person potentially has been, where they've been tracked, and it gives us evidence to be able to present to the relevant criminal justice agency to take that appropriate action.
The offender satellite tracking has been operating in 3 areas since last November. It'll be rolled out across England and Wales by the summer. tags will monitor 4,000 people every year. It'll be used in cases of domestic abuse and stalking to keep offenders away from victims. David Blunkett was the first politician to trial satellite tracking, launching a scheme when he was Home Secretary 15 years ago. But progress stalled due to contractual disputes and technical problems. The government will be hoping it has more success this time. Danny Shaw, BBC News.
Friends and colleagues of the Cardiff City striker Emiliano Sala are gathering in the town of Progreso in northern Argentina, where the footballer's funeral is taking place. He died along with the pilot David Ibbotson when their plane went down in the English Channel last month. Cardiff manager Neil Warnock and Chief Executive Ken Chu are expected to attend. From Progreso, Natalio Cosoy reports.
For many of the residents of this small Argentinian town, it is too much to bear. A hometown hero returned too soon.
Without a doubt, we wouldn't have imagined everything that we're seeing now. There are 3,000 of us, and we're still shocked and overwhelmed, but still trying to give Emiliano Sala the farewell he deserves.
Emiliano Sala grew up playing football here in Progreso until he left, age 14, to pursue bigger opportunities. After making his name playing in France, the 28-year-old was bought by Cardiff City for a club record £15 million on the 19th of January. Just 2 days later, the plane carrying him and the pilot David Ibbotson from France to the Welsh capital disappeared over the English Channel. After a 2-week search, the footballer's body was found in the wreckage. Mr. Ibbotson remains missing.
I'd like to find a person in authority who says to me, this happened, but it seems just like his death has led us to this.
It was a shock for Progreso, where his family, friends and childhood neighbours are now gathering to pay their respects. Mourners are coming into this building on the grounds of Emiliano Sala's childhood football club. They are coming here to say their final farewells to the football player. Later, there will be a religious ceremony, and then the body of Emiliano Sala will be taken to be cremated, as per the wish of his family. Ahead of today's service, Sala's boyhood club San Martín de Progreso posted a message on social media saying, "We are waiting for you, like the first day you left, but this time to stay with us forever, eternally in our hearts." Natalio Cosoy, BBC News, Progreso.
Lady Falkender, who was political secretary to the former Prime Minister, Harold Wilson, has died at the age of 86. Formerly known as Marcia Williams, she was a controversial and powerful figure. She was the former Labour Prime Minister's right-hand woman during his 2 periods in office during the 1960s and 70s. The former Labour MP Austin Mitchell, who once interviewed Lady Falkender, said she was key to Harold Wilson becoming Prime Minister.
She was certainly dedicated to Harold Wilson, and people like Bernard Donahue, his speechwriter, who came into contact with her in the course of work, found her a bit of a termagant and too tough, really. It was almost as if she had a married relationship with Wilson. I mean, they'd been together and worked together for so long. It was a fairly intense relationship, and she kept his feet on the ground, but I think, in a sense, power went to her head when she was his political secretary, because she made contact with a lot of people, some of them tacky people, some of them show business people, who she wouldn't have normally come across.
Military charities say they're not able to cope with the rising demand for mental health support for veterans. At least 58 former servicemen and women took their own lives last year.